Okay, hi everyone, and welcome to the AuthorAID online research communication course discussion video. Today we are getting together some guest facilitators and participants of our online course, and we're going to discuss some of the questions that have been asked by participants over the last few weeks. So first of all, I'm going to ask the participants of the video to introduce themselves, starting with Richard.
Hello, my name is Richard de Grace. I'm based at Peking University in China, where I'm a senior academic in astronomy and astrophysics. Meanwhile, I've also been very active as a journal editor for the last 12 years or so. So I have quite some experience on that side of things, and I'm happy to share my experiences with you.
Okay, great. And Ravi?
Hi, I'm Ravi. I am the course facilitator. I work for INASP. I'm based in India, and I've run quite a few online courses with Andy.
Great. Miraz?
Yes, I'm Blackie. I'm from Mauritius, tiny island in the Indian Ocean. I work for the University of Liverpool Laureate online program for the last 9 years or so.
Great. And next we'll go for Amir. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello everyone. I'm Amir Menon, based in Pakistan. I'm working as a lecturer in the Institute of Medical and Health Sciences of Nawabshah.
Okay, great. And finally, Alan.
Just unmuting my microphone. Right. Hello, yes, I'm Alan Parker. I'm a physical chemist. I'm from Britain, but I live in France. I worked in industry for 40 odd years and published about 40 papers. So yeah, I'm pleased to be here to help.
Okay, great. Welcome. Ganiyat, can you hear us? Okay, hopefully we'll catch up with you in a little while and you can introduce yourself. And we also have Marco Louis, can you hear us?
Hello everybody, this is Marco Luis, I'm based in Venezuela. I'm an electronic engineer. And this is my first time as guest facilitator on INASP course. So I'm very excited about this.
Okay, great, welcome. And Ganiyat, can you hear us now? Ganiyat? Okay. We'll speak to you in a little while. We have two course participants here. We have Yinki, would you like to introduce yourself?
My name is Elaine from Elizabeth University in Nigeria. I'm a senior lecturer, and I'm a microbiologist. I'm happy to be with you guys.
Okay, we see you, but you can't hear.
Great, welcome. And Hannah, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello.
Hello.
Okay,
Okay, Hannah, could you introduce yourself?
Yes. I'm Hannah Bain from the Food Research
We don't seem to be able to hear you very well, Hannah. I have your list of questions here, and you could also type to us, and we'll see if we can answer them for you. Okay, let's get on to discussing some questions, as we've had a few technical problems. So, Yinki, would you like to ask your first question to us?
Thank you very much. One of the very first questions I wish to ask is that I came up with a new methodology for doing work, given the limitation that we have here in developing countries. So my concern is if I write up my manuscript for submission, I will now be able to convince the journal editor to accept our new approach, our new methodology.
Okay. Did everybody hear that properly? No?
But should I repeat myself?
Okay, could you repeat your question?
All right. I just recently, came up with a new approach for a study, given the limitation that we've got here in developing country. So my concern is if I write a manuscript, how will I be able to convince the journal editors to be able to accept our new methodology?
Okay. So you've come up with a new methodology.
Yes.
How can you persuade the journal editors to accept this new methodology?
Yes.
Okay.
Do I need to answer my question, or I should wait for
No, that's fine. I'm just going to open this up now to the facilitators to see if they have any thoughts or answers. Who would like to answer that question?
Okay, let me jump in and try.
Okay.
Yeah, how to start an answer there. I think what you could do is apply your new methodology to data that has been analyzed in the past and for which people have used standard methodologies to see whether or not your newly developed method will actually lead to the same results. That way you will generate confidence in your results, and you can make a case that your method is simpler, more straightforward, cheaper, or something along those lines to convince journal editors that it should be worth publishing.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Noted.
Okay. Good response. Anybody else have any other thoughts on that? No. Okay. Let's check and let's see if Hannah could ask her first question to us.
Okay.
Hannah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
The question was, is it okay to assume that all articles that cited a paper later retracted, those articles should also be retracted, or kind of from the research domain, because they cited retracted articles? Okay, to assume that those articles should be taken or shouldn't be used. They cited a retracted article.
Not very clear, unfortunately.
I think I know what Hannah was asking because she sent me the questions beforehand.
Yeah, that would be great if you could read it out.
We didn't quite hear you very well, Hannah, but I think I know what you were asking. You said in your post, somebody's phone's ringing. You said in your post, do we assume that all articles that had cited a retracted article should also be retracted? So what happens if you cite an article that is retracted? What do our facilitators think of that?
Well, I think there is, if it's already been done, the harm is done. I don't think that there is a need to, what am I saying? No, I'm thinking, I'm thinking that if you have already published a paper and the articles get retracted after publication, it might be worth, sending a note to, and if you become aware of it, it might be worth sending a note to the publisher to mention that since publication, the article has been retracted. But if the article is not yet published, it's better to remove it from from the literature review or whatever, from the reference list, and use something else.
I could just jump in. I mean, if you started like retracting articles which had a retracted reference, then you'd create kind of an avalanche of every time one article was removed from the literature. So, and that doesn't happen right now, because it would be very, very messy if every retracted article, every cited retracted article created retract and so on. It would be terrible. So I agree with Merez. If you can, if it's retracted before publication, then remove after publication, as he said, the harm is done. Then that's it.
Yeah, I also want to point out that that even if an article is retracted, it still forms part of the scientific record.
Okay. So, Hannah, do you think we've answered your question?
No, I don't. I didn't really get the point where he was making that if the paper has already been published, then if you haven't published it, then you can take it out of the reference list. But what if it's already published? That was actual research.
Okay, so could we make that clearer again? And what should we do if it's already been published?
Yeah, I mean, what the three of us agreed on was that in that case there was nothing to do. There is no. Richard said it's part of the scientific record. Yeah. And my point was that if you start down that road, you're going to create a huge number of new retractions. Mm-hmm. So it's too late.
Yeah. Yeah, if I could add something, yeah, I think that is that kind of domino effect with, yeah, if we start putting down papers, sort of cited, retracted papers. But I guess for the author, if you're really concerned about a paper that you have cited being retracted, and why would that be? I guess if you have built your work on the basis of, say, well, you wouldn't normally build your entire work on the basis on one paper. Usually it's sort of a collection of papers that you assimilate ideas and build your background. But in case you're worried that much of your research depends on one paper, and that paper has been retracted, and so you're wondering about your own, the kind of the merit of your own study, I guess that's up to you as an author to figure out what you want to do. There are cases where authors have requested retractions or requested their paper to be withdrawn for that happens. So if you're really concerned, you can reach out to the editor of the journal to discuss the options. That's up to you, but yeah.
Okay, so I think the quick response. Okay, great. I think the quick response to your question, the answer was no. You don't have to retract your paper if you're citing a retracted paper. So that's all good. We have someone who's managed to join us. So it's Angela. Hello, Angela. Angela, can you hear us?
You're on mute.
Can you? Oh, Do you have a little red mute button at the top of your screen, Angela?
Yeah, it's looking up.
Oh dear, we're having all the technical problems today, aren't we? Oh, Angela, can you hear us? Okay. Okay, we'll see if Angela can hear and speak to us as we go. So let's go back to Elaine Yinke, who had some other questions, I think, about research communication in general.
Yep. Thank you.
Ask those?
Yeah. Now we see on the media, social media, how developed countries, researchers are able to drive interest onto their research work. So I'm particularly interested how we can also tap the search. We know some of our limitations and challenges, but then I'm really, curious to know how I can drive interest onto our research, here in developing countries.
Okay, so how can we drive interest of our work?
Yes.
How can we? Yeah, that's what you said on the post. How can we drive interest onto our research?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you have any advice on that question? A very general question around research communication. How can we?
Yeah, well, I'm reminded of something that you did, Andy, with the paper we published. So earlier this year, Andy, I, and a colleague of ours, we published a paper about our MOOCs. That's what we do. That's our research. And then soon after the paper was published, Andy put out a number of tweets. We are both active on Twitter. So we do have some followers, and we tweet in a sort of professional capacity. And I noticed that one of those was really picked up. It was, and also Andy, you wrote, it was on Kudos, so maybe you can write, say a little bit about that. So so Twitter plus writing a lay summary of the paper on a website called Kudos or growkudos.com. It's a sort of combination, and it's not a one-time effort. So it's a bit of a, you gotta try mentioning it in your paper in different places and try again. So something like that. I don't think there's a formula to get it right the first time. That's my experience.
If I may add, LinkedIn has, the LinkedIn Pulse, whereby, you can add to your paper, invite interest, it sounds quite interesting. Add certain things to your paper, some images or something, as to make it more attractive, and use some attractive subtitles, etc. Please check LinkedIn Pulse.
And ResearchGate, I found, is a very good way of reviving old papers. If you put them onto ResearchGate with a generates interest in things which are, quite well hidden in the literature. And to have a good site on ResearchGate with up-to-date things, and perhaps answering questions as well to get yourself better known. Look when you answer the questions. They want to find out who you are. Quite a new and fruitful way, I think, of raising your profile and raising your research profile.
Okay. I know somebody else has just joined on our ongoing merry-go-round of facilitators. Bernard Appiah has managed to squeeze his way into the video. Bernard, would you like to quickly introduce yourself?
Hi. Yeah, please, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes, you're fine.
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, my name is Bernard Appiah. I am an associate. I've been involved in AuthorAID since 2009, and I usually provide tips of the week which are available on the website, AuthorAID website, and also I've been involved in some workshops. And I'm glad to be one of the guest facilitators.
Great.
And I'm glad to see you. I mean, it's good to be chatting online, but it's good to see your faces too.
It's nice to see you too, Bernard, but we can only see the top of your head.
Oh, you can only see my head.
What's the only part that is visible? Problem.
Could you move your yeah, that's it. That's it.
That's it. Yes.
That's better.
Oh, you can see me now, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Beautiful.
Okay. So Bernard, actually, I'm glad you joined because the question that was just asked by Elaine Yunke was basically, how can we drive more interest into our research work?
Oh, okay. Okay. Mention gate, right?
I think we've lost you actually, Bernard. I can't hear you.
Okay. Yes.
Hello, Bernard.
The question was how to drive.
Oh dear. Okay, I think Bernard's kind of frozen. So
Sorry.
I'll stop. I'll mute you for the moment, Bernard, because I'm not sure if you're still speaking or not. And see if.
Can you hear me?
Oh, I see. I'm just reading the comments now. Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Nothing on this is working properly at all. Maybe I should leave the video and come back in and wait my turn. Okay. Yes. Sorry, Hannah. I'm not sure how that happened. I think I've fixed it now. Okay, who else would like to answer the question? Let's see if we can get Bernard back at some point. Who else would like to answer the question? How can we drive more interest in our research, in our paper? Or perhaps, Elaine Yunke, would you like to ask one of your other questions, which is very much related to this on research communication?
Yeah, another one I would like to ask is how do we also handle this interpretation of our research work? You know, sometimes you can have a work published out there and try and make a small kind of a summary of it, and some people how they just pick it and you know, twist it around and kind of create a sort of a negative feedback. So how should we handle such situation? We find ourselves having our research work, you know, misinterpreted.
So basically, how should we handle misinterpretation of our work?
Yes.
Is that in the context of speaking with a science journalist, or just generally?
Yeah, both. Generally, you know, in the context of, you know, speaking with not even a science journalist, like maybe, you know, just a general journalist who lacks an idea of the science, and probably got your article picked up and so on, trying to just, you know, create a fuse to gain viewership for their article, you know, creating sort of a negative view for us as researchers.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'd say a couple of things. I don't have a lot of experience speaking with science journalists, but there was this one time when I spoke with a journalist, actually a science journalist. It wasn't about a science project, but an article came out on a major website, and I was quoted on a number of things. It was mostly fine, but I thought, you know, the way he presented some quotes, I thought, well, maybe I said it in conversation, but I wouldn't write it. So there's some really kind of strong words, which I thought doesn't quite represent the way I would, actually put out the word. It wasn't a big problem, but the thing is, it is still published. It's up there. So in general, I think science journalists, you've got to be a little careful, or if you think you could be, misunderstood, maybe better to have a lay summary of your paper or the key findings in written form to give to people. That would be one suggestion I have. Because sometimes when journalists are not obliged to check with you before they publish, once you give an interview, that's it. It's done. They might not come back to you to say, hey, check this article. They don't do all that. So you've got to it's better to cover your own basis and maybe give a late summary or plain English summary of your research.
It is true, Ravi, that journalists don't have to get back to you, but if you ask them to just send those quotes that they will include about or from you or allegedly from you just for fact checking, they will most of the time do that. I've been on the receiving end of interviews a few times this year. The first time I didn't ask for that and they misquoted me, and so I was quite unhappy about that. And 3 or 4 interviews since, and every time I've asked the journalists to send me the quotes that they would like to include, and they've done so diligently. That was very good, actually.
Okay, thanks. It's really helpful.
Great. Anybody else have any advice on what to do if your work is misinterpreted by anybody, really? Have you ever been misinterpreted by another author?
Oh, not really, but I've been of recent. There was this stuff I saw from Weapon Trust on how experts are not being trusted again based on how their research work is being complicated, and so that was where the thought came to me that what if I put something out there or I say something and it gets misinterpreted? Then how do I defend myself? How do I defend the research? That's where the thought of the question came from. Did you hear me?
Okay. So if nobody has anything to add to that, Hannah, I know that you had another question on predatory journals, didn't you?
Read it out for me. I have forgotten, Andy.
Okay, that's good. I think you're asking if you submit your article to a predatory journal and then you later find out that it's a predatory journal, what can you do? Can you prevent it getting published? Is that your question?
If it's not yet published, what can you do? Can you take it to another journal, ask the editor of the, can you take it to another journal? If you ask the editor of the journal and he grants you a retraction, can you take it to other and it's easier now?
Okay, so so can you submit it to another journal? Can you retract it? I think Amir has some experience of this. Is that right, Amir?
Yeah, but I couldn't hear the question clearly.
So could you speak up, Amir?
Yeah, I couldn't hear the question very clearly.
You didn't hear the question? If you submit to a predatory journal, are you able to prevent it getting published or retract it and publish it elsewhere?
Well, controversial. I mean, you cannot publish your findings in another journal after retracting it from a predatory journal. I would suggest, I would suggest that even after retracting the article from the predatory journal, you should not submit it to editor journal unless the editor agrees. Possible that the article that you had published in predatory journal would be rejected, but submitting it simultaneously to another journal or submitting it to another journal, something.
I think we're struggling to hear you, Amir. Yeah, I don't think we can hear you very well.
Yeah. I could, you know, I'm on an email list, and recently there was a discussion about, I think the same thing. The thing is withdrawing an article from a predatory journal. There is actually a case study on COPE, the Committee on Publication Ethics, which is an influential publishing body, and they so there is a case about this. So I think generally the problem is once you publish in a predatory journal, or even if you don't publish but you've kind of the door, they publish your article, and then it's up there, and maybe it's sort of you can't publish it again. It's a duplicate publication, and then the predatory journal often don't respond to your. They don't care. They don't take it down even if you ask them to. Or even if you've not paid them to publish it, because so it can be really difficult. But there is this case study. I have the link. I think we'll share it on the forum, which acknowledge all of these problems. So it would be a bit, wouldn't be right to just read it out. It's fairly intricate. So we'll share a link to this on the forum for everyone to see.
Okay.
Yeah, what do you think, Andy?
Yeah, that sounds good. I know that Amir has written an editorial on this as well, so perhaps we can share that link. And
all right.
Yeah, so it is possible. Oh, he's linked to it for us. It is possible in some circumstances, but it really depends.
That's the same thing I was talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I always ask people if they've signed a copyright form, because if they haven't actually formally given permission to the journal to publish, then I think you can easily withdraw the article or retract it. Okay, we're still having technical problems and we're running out of time, so perhaps if on the subject of predatory journals, actually we've got somebody new that's popped in. Hello, is that Dr. Parajuli? We can't hear you. You're still very quiet.
Okay now. Right.
Yeah, you're very quiet. Very faint. Okay. Seems like everybody's having sound and internet problems today.
That's very unlucky.
Okay. We can't quite hear you very well, so but perhaps perhaps it will start working in a minute. It is a very unlucky day, Amir. Yes. So Hannah has followed up with a question I've just seen saying, thanks for the explanation, but usually those predatory journals don't give out copyright forms. I would say if you haven't signed a copyright form, then they don't have permission. They don't have formal permission to actually publish your article. I think that was my understanding. So if you haven't signed copyright, then you might be in a good position to be able to legally retract it. But I would read the case that we're going to link to on the forums and Amir's article as well. So of the people that can hear me and we can hear, would you like to give your tips on either how to identify a predatory journal or how to identify a credible journal? Some quick tips. Who'd like to start?
Okay, I'll start. Credible journals. Talk to your senior mentors, your supervisors, your colleagues. they will have experience in the field and they know which journals they usually publish in.
Okay, good advice.
Sorry to cut in here, but I don't think it works across all places, because I've worked with quite a number of seniors who themselves are falling victim of predatory, journals. So by the virtue of having, being trained outside my country, I tend to be able to determine predatory journals even more than they are. So I don't think it works across all sectors.
Okay.
That's a very good point, actually. Okay, any other tips?
I basically go, by what the ACSP or, for example, EBSCO, Emerald, etc. will publish. Institutions also provide us a list, and this is your best bet. If you're applying for promotion or something of the kind, it's better we go by what the institution is looking for.
Okay, so consult your institution and their lists.
Yes.
Ami has just said that he learnt about it through reading more and more about predatory journals. So basically stay informed and read more about this.
In developing countries, your seniors don't even know. So
sorry, I don't think we can hear you still, I'm afraid, Ami. I'm sorry. Ravi, you're about to say something.
Yeah, yeah, it's also about reading. Have you read the articles in that journal, or would you read them? Because often, if you, these predatory journals carry a lot of flawed articles that have ended up there. They may have some good articles. Those are the researchers who sort of get trapped. But there are also, I think, a lot of researchers who published incomplete work, or because of sort of publish or perish, the desperation to get a publication out in time. And those are and that's how predatory journals have millions, or at least hundreds of thousands of articles. So you've got to think of the reader. Are you a reader of that journal, or would you be a reader? And if the answer is a clear no, then actually that's a problem.
Okay. Any other tips?
There's another tip from Amir about, I think it's sort of related to Richard's point. I think there is an issue with the, looking for advice from seniors. Where Amir says, I'm sure with his own experience, in developing countries, seniors might not be able to give you right advice, maybe not all seniors at least. And he adds that reading literature is a good starting point. So in case you're getting conflicting advice, just try to build up your own thinking skills to evaluate the literature and journals.
There's a tip here as well from Oswalala, who uses a journal selector. It's just one of many journal selectors. Some editing companies out there provide, and also publishers provide journal selectors, and they tend to be credible in general.
Okay, and is that Psi Major? Is that the Scopus index?
Yeah, I think so.
I was looking at it. I can't find it, but I did find something called Psi Mag OJR.
Yeah, that's it. You're right. That's the correct one.
And
right.
Okay, is that so? It's usually worth checking the Elsevier Scopus and the Clarivate indexes, which have lists of journals that are indexed in those. Okay, the one thing that I tend to notice is when a lot of the researchers that ask us, is this a credible journal or not? Often the journal that they're asking about is called the International Journal of, and so I would always advise, if you see the words the journal title starts with international journal, look for evidence that it is actually an international journal, because about 99% of those which were asked about very much aren't. I think they really have to prove that they are a very highly ranking, credible journal if they have those words in the title, and also global journals and world journals. So I'd be extra skeptical of journals with very grand names.
Or American Journal.
American Journal, yeah.
Yeah, predatory publishers like to add Western countries in their titles.
Yes. So we're Ravi and I are thinking we're going to wrap up in about 15 minutes, so we've got some time for some more. Actually, there's a few more things that have come up that people are typing. Marco Louis has says, how about checking a journal in DOAJ, so the Directory of Open Access Journals, which is a good tip, I think.
You still have to be a bit careful.
Yeah, I think with any list, the lists keep changing. So today a journal might be in the DOAJ. Not to say, I don't want to kind of scare people, but tomorrow it might not be. And today something that's not there might be there tomorrow. So these lists are, they're very useful, but it's, I think ultimately the responsibility rests with the author, and for them to really think hard and to really look at it from the reader point of view, not just an author point of view. That's, I think that's the main thing.
That's good advice too. With DOAJ, it's always good to look out for the green tick. The green tick means that it's passed a lot of the most recent assessment criteria and has been assessed in the last year or so. Okay. Is there any more tips on this, or should we move on to a different topic? Okay, so somebody who couldn't make it today asked the following question to us about plagiarism, and I've seen a lot of similar questions in the forums. And he basically said, I have tried to make a lot of my documents test 0% on plagiarism checkers, but it's impossible. Is there an acceptable percentage of plagiarism? If not, what is wrong with my documents? So it's quite a common question, and lots of people ask about this percentage that's given. So what do people think?
Maybe I can answer that question from the journal editor's perspective. Yeah. Whatever you do, there is hardly any document that will not show 5 to 10% plagiarism. In essence, that means text overlap with previous publications because you use common phrases or just standard ways of saying things, and there's nothing wrong with that as long as you swath of text at the same time. At our journal, we pass all submissions through a commercial plagiarism checker called AuthorAID. If it's up to 25% similarity, we don't call that plagiarism, we call it similarity. If it's up to 25% similarity, we don't really worry about it too much. Once it gets a bit higher than that, we have a look at what the similarity looks like. But even so, sometimes if you have even 35% similarity, that still might not be a problem. There might not be plagiarism, that might just be bad luck. So there is no minimum percentage of plagiarism that's acceptable, or maximum, but it depends on the circumstances.
Yeah, just to read out Amir's comment. As Richard said, he agrees that 5 to 10% of similarity index is fairly common. Even more is, I've heard, is it's common if it's about common phrases. And yeah, I guess unless I've actually not used Authenticate, but I believe a journal editor looking at it, they get to see where are the similarities, and and it's really about the scientific content, or sometimes there are certain, you get to, with enough reading, you come to realize which are could be unique sentences, unique form, unique phrases, and which are really common. So it's a human judgment. It's really not the software that makes any decision. It just shows up a number and and matches up the similar phrases. So it's not about targeting 0%, because I think that would be impossible. But to rewrite things in your own words, and yeah, so that's there's a lot of advice and plagiarism. Yeah.
Particularly in the natural and physical sciences, it happens very often that the methodology can only be really well be described in one or two ways, and so there tends to be more overlap in the methods section than in the other sections. There should really be as little overlap as possible in the results and discussion.
Yeah.
Okay. I missed the middle of that, but it sounded like you were giving some good answers to that question. It's something that we hear quite often. Just to share my recent experience, we've been trialing the Crossref plagiarism checker based on Turnitin, and the number it's always the number should be, the percentage number should be interpreted quite liberally. It just gives an indication, perhaps. It doesn't always really tell you much. So I've seen some articles that it gave 30% for text, 30% text overlap, and we looked further at the article and it was fine. There's no plagiarism there. It was just general phrases. And there was one that was about 9%, but most of that 9% was a paragraph that was copy and pasted quite blatantly elsewhere and was plagiarized. So it really depends, and I think only a human can actually tell what constitutes real plagiarism and not.
Yeah, so things have limitations also.
Yeah, they definitely have limitations. Yeah.
The Turnitin does not recognize similarity in the pictures.
Apparently, I heard recently of a case where it was I've heard a couple of cases where there was a 0%, and one of those cases, it was because the author cheated and put a character in between every single letter, and so the software couldn't actually read any of it, and so it's completely unique. So it is possible to get 0, but only if you cheat. So yeah, Marco Louis says take the similarity results with a grain of salt. So yeah, indeed, they're computers and not humans doing a check. Okay, so one final question to ask then. I think we've lost Hannah. But I wanted to talk about data, especially as Alan is here and he might know more about data than I do. We've had a couple of questions about statistical software, and one of them was, if I'm using a statistical software on my paper, but the software is quite old or it's not the latest version, does that reflect badly on my research?
Yeah, I saw that one, and my answer is quite clear that it really doesn't matter, because this software has been validated and it works. You know, they love to sell new versions every year, but the guts of the thing is still working perfectly, and it's 5 years ago, nothing has changed now. I mean, points of view, but I think that's absolutely not a problem.
Okay. And do you have any recommendations for statistical packages, Alan?
That's a setup question. Well, actually, I use R, which is a free open source software. As Richard is smiling because he's heard me answer this times already, and it's well recognized. Statistical professors throughout the free software to do everything you can imagine and many things you cannot imagine, analyzing using R. Really, I couldn't recommend anything else more. I wonder what Richard uses in his spare time, perhaps something more physicist. I'm planning to promote R in the chemical sciences because it's very well known in statistics itself and areas, but really we should all be using it, I think.
Yeah, we use R as well, but it's not the only package.
Yeah, I've dabbled a little bit in our rather high science level, but it's great because open source, even Moodle is open source, what we use for our courses. But I think in terms of statistical software, there are recently heard from someone. She's not an academic researcher, but she said she had installed a statistical software that she used 20 years back. She had managed to install it to do some work. So I think I'm going to ask, it's really about whether the software exists today, or is it really some, Alan said the versions that they keep coming out for the big commercial applications. But if it's really an obsolete software that existed 20 years back, but doesn't exist today, so I don't know if it's right to use that, then somebody can't replicate it even if they can pay for it. I think using something current, something that is in the market today, even if it's not the latest version, maybe that's more sensible. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, what you say, Ravi, that introduced the whole question, which we don't have time to answer, about reproducible research, which argues that you should software which you publish yourself using open source software that other people can have at zero cost. And another question that came up, so that any actually take your data, your method, and your software and perfectly reproducible and correct, and that's the standard now in some areas of research.
Yeah.
And let's hope that in the next few years it becomes wider spread.
Yeah, it's good.
I mean, another question we get asked quite often is there are lots of questions about data analysis and statistics, and people are asking where they can find out more information on free training resources and how to get the training on doing data analysis. Does anybody have any advice or resources that they know of?
Well, again, it is R. There are a lot of online courses. R itself has a lot of documentation that's free. But I've seen a number of courses, open courses on Coursera in particular, about which many of them use R. So one tip.
YouTube is also quite helpful.
YouTube?
Yes, YouTube, I mean, ask the question, you're guided by good professors on how to perform your data analysis.
Okay.
Okay, so check YouTube.
Oh yes, oh yes.
Cool. And we're going to have hopefully a blog on the AuthorAID website written by Alan with some examples of how to use R. So there's some advice on that.
That's
so that should be good.
Yes.
I'm being told that I need to wrap up now because we're about to lose our power in this building. So
Okay.
I'm really sorry for all the technical problems, and this is just rounding things off. I guess we've so for the participants that have joined, sorry that we've had technical problems, and I hope that we've at least answered one or two of your questions. And I think we've got some good clips that we can use and sort of just release various clips of this discussion so that we can answer quite specific questions. So I think there's some quite good answers that we've had from our facilitators, which is good, which is really good. But for everyone else who we can't hear, I'm really sorry about that. So perhaps next time we'll be able to I'll plan it better so we've got more room for people and that we'll do some more testing beforehand. Thank you very much for joining. And if you have any follow-up questions, let me know. But for now, I'm going to say goodbye.
Okay, goodbye. Thank you very much. Bye.
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 Have a good day.
Thanks for joining.
Okay, goodbye.